Well, no doubt if you're an aviation student, aerospace student of any sort, you've probably ran into this man. We have Dean Kraus with us today. Thanks for coming in, Dean.
Thanks, Matt.
Dean
Glad
Kraus.
to be here.
So I guess we don't want to just kind of talk to you a little bit and kind of bring you down to a personal level, and find out kind of about your background.
Sure.
Where did your beginnings start?
Cleveland, Ohio.
Cleveland.
So when I was born, we lived on the west side of Cleveland in a suburb called Rocky River. Lived there through first grade. And this is kind of where I got my start with aviation and space and those types of things, not from a pilot perspective, but from an airplane and being interested in space. And so my dad would build models with us and rockets. And so we would shoot that stuff off and blow things up like, kids like to do. And so, but then when I was, the summer I turned 7, we moved out to Medina, out into the country, and went to a more rural school. And then I stayed there through the rest of high school.
So Medina that's not Minnesota, right?
No, Medina, about 20 miles south of Cleveland.
Oh, okay.
So still Cleveland, still Northeast Ohio.
You grew up all in that area. Okay. So did your dad have any background in aviation? Is like with the building models and everything?
Absolutely not. So it actually goes back to my grandfather. So
Really?
My dad's father. So he would build models as a kid and growing up. And this is back in the day. So in the 1930s, for those who aren't familiar, Cleveland was the air race capital of the world effectively. And so every year they would have these national championship air races. And Jimmy Doolittle and people like that would come in. And so my grandfather has a model that I have today. It's a little wooden model that Jimmy Doolittle signed.
Really?
And so then his career was in the tool and die with Union Carbide during the war, during World War II, and then even beyond that. So he was always a mechanical type person and making things. That kind of got passed down to my dad, and then my dad passed that down to me. So always kind of an engineer at heart of building things, finding out how things work.
How did you go from that to the Air Force then?
So going through school, then 10th grade, I had a visit from a friend of my mother's who was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, asked what I wanted to do and if I had thought about going to the academy. And we had to write a research paper for an English class about careers. And so we had to research what it took to get into the career, all those types of things about it. And the Air Force was one of those things. And so I did research on the Air Force and the Air Force Academy. And that really got me thinking I wanted to at least try and do that. And part of it was, too, is we didn't come from a lot of money in our family. And so I was either going to need a full tuition scholarship to go somewhere, or the military was the other option.
And then, so for those that don't know, where is that academy at?
So the Air Force Academy is in Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Okay. So you got to move out then.
Actually, even before that. So I took my ACT and SAT as a sophomore in high school because I knew that I wanted to go to a good school, knew that I wanted to do well. So I took it as a practice. Well, I did well enough on them that I didn't need to take them again.
Oh.
And so I started getting letters from colleges and things
Sure.
to do this. Of course, it didn't matter because I was only a junior in high school. There was a program up in New York, though, for high school seniors. So as a high school senior, go full-time to Clarkson University. So for the hockey fans in the audience, the other hockey school that's up there, in fact, we're playing them again this year. And so for my senior year of high school, I went to Clarkson University full-time.
Is that a fact?
So,
really?
And joined Air Force ROTC. And so here I am, a high school senior, had to get my parents' permission for me to join ROTC because I was only 17. And loved it.
Huh.
And so while that was going on, I applied to go through the process of getting into the Air Force Academy. So it's a lengthy process, but you have to apply to your congressman, get a nomination to go to the academy, and then you go through the academy's process to get accepted. And so I went through all that, got accepted. So after a year of college at Clarkson, came back and graduated, and then I went off to the Air Force Academy.
When you go to the Air Force Academy, is that a guaranteed flight slot as long as you get through all the training and everything?
So it's cyclical, much like the pilot industry. And so it also depends on your medical qualification. And so if you are medically qualified at the time, you are expected to go to pilot training. And so part of the admissions process was based on that. So a class of graduating about 1,000 people that we would generally have around 500 that were going to be pilots. And
Really?
but there was still a need for pilots at that time.
Mm-hmm. So it's about a 50% attrition then?
No, the rest aren't pilots. The rest are maintenance officers.
Gotcha.
And so when you look at the Air Force as a whole, it's 15% officers as the entire Air Force. But even that, it's a small percentage that are actually pilots.
Looking back, on just getting up to that point, but you can talk about your whole career. What are a few people that kind of guided you, but also points that were like, this switched me from this to this.
Sure. So the ROTC commander. So when I showed up at Clarkson, here I am, 17 years old. I'm 8-hour drive from home. For those who don't know where Clarkson is, it's 3 hours north of Syracuse. And so our closest city was Montreal in Quebec.
Oh, wow.
So it was way up there. So latitude-wise and winter-wise, yeah, I'm ready for winter.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure. Started getting the butterflies or whatever. Do I really want to join the Air Force? I don't know anything about it. The commander, the lieutenant colonel says, have you signed anything that says you're committed? I said, no. He says, why don't you give it a shot? If you don't like it after the first semester, you can drop it. You cannot continue it. He says, just try. Because it's a 1 credit, like a history of the Air Force type class that first year, or what the Air Force is. And then there's a leadership laboratory where you learn how to march and participate.
Oh, okay.
And because of that, that was the year that just said, yes, I want to be in the Air Force.
Really?
And so I was applying to the academy while that was all happening. And so then when I got into the academy, I'm like, yes, I'm going to the academy.
So you get it to the academy, and I mean, obviously you got a flight slot. So what happened then? You go through the training.
Well, so I wasn't even pilot qualified.
Oh, you weren't?
No, I had a head injury. I was in a bad car accident when I was 16.
Oh.
My fault.
Happens.
Speeding. Yeah. So I was the only one involved. And so I had a head injury. And the Air Force doesn't like head injuries, just like the FAA. And so there's a 5-year waiting period. And so by the time I was 21, I'm at 5 years. And so the Air Force applied for a waiver to fly. And so I was applying to graduate school to go straight into the Air Force and go to grad school and get a master's degree. But then I found out just before my senior year that I was going to fly. And so I made the choice of, do I go to grad school now or do I fly now? I'm like, well, based on medicals and everything like that, I'm going to go fly now.
Yeah.
And so that's when I made the decision to go fly.
And then what did you end up doing for the Air Force on the flight side?
So I went to pilot training in Texas. Coming out of there, we were guaranteed fighters. But unfortunately, by the time we graduated, the Air Force had too many fighter pilots. And so they didn't give us any fighters to our class. Chose a C-141. So 166-foot wingspan, 4-jet transport. And got to Northern California and loved it. Did that for 3 years there. Then moved down to Edwards Air Force Base, a year and a half as a non-test pilot. Got into the Air Force Test Pilot School, so using my engineering degree and flying all at the same time. And for the next year, flew 30 different airplanes. And then coming out of that, C-130s. And the C-130J was a brand new version of the airplane. So new engines, new cockpit, new heads-up display, and we lost 2 positions on the plane. So the flight engineer and the navigator were gone. So the pilots now had to do all the stuff that they used to do. Well, the pilots and the computers now had to do all the stuff they used to do. And so we were taking the airplane from Lockheed saying it's ready. We had to then confirm that it was ready, and then we had to prove that it was ready to release to actual regular Air Force pilots flying it. So we did all of the mission releases on the airplane. So we dropped people out of it. We dropped equipment out of it. We made sure the computers worked. We made sure things didn't break, that things didn't fail. And so that was our job, was to test all that.
You were the test pilot then?
We were the test pilot on it. And so part of it was with Lockheed, part of it was with the Air Force. And then that was also the time one of the first units to get it was the Hurricane Hunters in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Sure.
The Air Force Hurricane Hunters.
Anytime you're test piloting a plane and you did something, you're like, yeah, let's not do that again.
Yeah. Although the nice thing about being a test pilot is, one, you're selected to go to test pilot school, and there's a certain level of experience and skill that goes into it, that you know what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
There's some things that the test pilots will take an airplane beyond what a regular pilot will do. And so we do a lot of spins.
Oh, geez.
In many airplanes. So they'll say that the F-16 doesn't spin, but you can depart the F-16 and you're spinning around with a stalled wing. And so it certainly looks like a spin. And there's some interesting recoveries that you have to do with that. There's a lot of fun things that we did. And so there was a Honda test track outside of the Air Force Base up in the restricted area. So we're the only ones there. And we kind of had a contest going on to see who could fly around the racetrack the fastest.
That's very
and it didn't matter
too.
what airplane. You can't break the plane of the racetrack, right? And so we would do that. And so every once in a while, you would just see this going on. The scary things that happened to me actually weren't even, so the test pilot stuff was fun, right? Yes, it was challenging. Yes, we're getting a lot of the first time I'm in an airplane, like the first time we flew the F-15, it's a check ride. The instructor's in the back seat telling me how to start the airplane.
Oh my gosh.
But once we're on the runway, it's a check ride. Like I have to take the plane off, get the gear up, do a climb at military power, so non-afterburner, come back around and do a climb in maximum power up to 35,000 feet. You can get to 35,000 feet in like 2 minutes. Wow. 3 minutes in an F-15. And then just fly the entire sortie. And we're getting graded as if it's a check ride, and it's up to us even to say what the next maneuver is. Jeez. So we have a list of things that we're supposed to do. So we're supposed to plan the flight, execute the flight, and the guy sitting in the back seat just taking notes. Oh my gosh. The nice thing about the F-15, it is the easiest airplane I have ever landed.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. You see them land and they come down pretty hard sometimes, but they're,
the 15s don't. Because it's got a big wing like the F-22.
Yeah.
It's like you can't have if you have a hard landing, you got a problem.
Yeah.
Because the wing is so big that it comes down and you get this ground effect that just cushions like every landing, and the 15s grease it on every time.
Wow. Having the background of your dad and your grandpa with engineering, did that come into play with your aviation, like the test piloting and all?
It did. So that's what really led me to want to be a test pilot. So I was always good with math. So in high school, math and science, I enjoyed. And so then I got to the Air Force Academy. I had been a physics major at Clarkson, and then but I'm hanging out with a bunch of mechanical engineers. And I'm looking at the classes they're taking, and I'm like, I like that stuff better than just the science side of it. The science is good, but I like the engineering. So when I got to the academy, declared aeronautical engineering. And then the academy is unique in that it has a flight test course that's a senior elective. And so now it's you go through the academic classes and you learn about how to do flight tests, and then we actually go in a Cessna 172 and fly it. So the pilot, the instructor of the class is flying, and the students are taking data. So you're using a stopwatch, and you're looking at the G meter, and you're looking at all this, and the students are doing this, and then they have to write reports. And so that's the class.
Wow.
It's to train people to want to become test pilots. So test pilot school is obviously that to the graduate level, effectively. And so interestingly, so then I finished my tour at the academy, or at Edwards, got a job teaching that class to undergraduates at the Air Force Academy.
Really?
And it is the most fun class of teaching flight test to students and then going to fly with them. And so did that for 3 years, and I taught several other courses along the way. And then went back to flying the C-130J again, and with the Hurricane Hunters. But then I was also now moving up in leadership. So I got promoted to lieutenant colonel and was made the operations officer for the squadron. So I was the number 2 guy in a test squadron. And then I got a call I was working my next assignment. It was either to go be a squadron commander or work in the Pentagon, because at some point you usually have to go to the Pentagon for a job. And I get a call saying I'm released, that I can go to graduate school for a PhD. And I'm like, okay.
Did you request that?
Well, 3 years before, but I just assumed that since I was a pilot that there was no way they were going to let me go.
Yeah.
They did. And so now it became, where do I go to graduate school for a PhD that I can finish in 3 years? So we Google searched engineering schools. I did have to retake the GRE.
Really?
Yeah. And then there's a whole story behind that, but that's more. And ended up going to Virginia Tech. And so for 3 years, we were at Virginia Tech. I'm a grad student that's paid as a lieutenant colonel because I'm still active duty going to graduate school. And at the end of that, graduate with a PhD, went back to the Air Force Academy, taught initially, but then I moved up to the dean's office, which would be like the provost's office here.
Oh, okay.
So I was the action officer for them. I was the speechwriter, making presentations. I ran the staff meetings where we had all the department chairs. And so I learned about the administration of a university at that level. Got promoted to colonel, took over all the research programs at the academy. So ran all the grants and contracts and the small business partnerships that we had. Learned the administration of the research type of stuff. And so did that for a while. Interestingly, in that time, President Armacost here became the dean of the faculty at the Air Force Academy.
Oh, really?
And so he was my boss. So I had known him as the department chair.
Oh, wow.
He was the business or the management department chair. He becomes the dean, so the boss of all of us. And so the last year I was there, he was that.
Unreal. You know, it's funny how you cross paths like that, and people think, "Oh, it's such a big world,"
Right.
but it's going to happen.
Well, so I tell you, so I've seen a bunch of schools. I've been at Virginia Tech. I worked at Kent State after I retired, and now being here. This alumni program of our aviation and of UND is very similar to the Air Force and the Air Force Academy. That you'll run into people that you're like, "Oh, what year did you graduate?" And you talk to them, and you're like, "Oh, do you know so and so?" And the whole 7 degrees of separation or 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Mhm.
If you're a UND alum and you're in the aviation or aerospace industry, there's like 3 degrees of separation at most.
Yeah, and we saw that out at Oshkosh.
Yes.
I mean, it was unbelievable. Yeah.
Who knows who married who's flying for who now, all those types of things.
So was your turning point to kind of get into academia that first class that you taught, do you think?
So that got me in the classroom. And the Air Force Academy, we had a great teacher preparation program before you actually start into the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So I showed up, finished my PhD in May. So graduation, just like any other universities in May, I showed up. Classes don't start until August. So we just did teacher prep, and we would have other teachers sitting in the classroom acting like students, doing every stupid thing that a student might do. And they're testing you to see how you react to this. And so with cadets, they have to be in uniform. Yeah. They're falling asleep. They're wearing their uniform wrong. They're showing up to class late, all these types of things to test you on how you handle a classroom. And so the other thing that we got really good at was learning not to say And so it's more just take a pause, just stop talking, breathe, and move on. And so became a better public speaker because of that. But the engineering side of it is what I love. It's engineering and it's airplanes. And so that is my career.
So what led you to UND? Let's talk that.
Interesting story about how I found out about UND in the first place. So I was at the Air Force Academy. I was the director of research.
You're still in Colorado now?
I was still in Colorado Springs. I was a colonel. And so this is in the 2013 timeframe. So we had a center of innovation that was partnered with the Center for Innovation here.
Really?
Yeah. So Bruce Jovig was running the Center for Innovation here, and we would take interns from here down to the Air Force Academy. And so we had interns that were there, one or two at a time. And one of them ended up in my office because of personnel changes and some things that had happened. And so so they were talking about UND. And so we found out a lot more about UND. Of course, they know that I'm a pilot. And so they just talked it all up. And so became familiar with it and looked into it. And so when this opportunity came up, my wife and I talked about it, and we says we'd already considered coming up here. And so this time we applied for it and got it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So what year? Was that 4 years, 5 years, 6?
I'm in my 6th year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah. January of 21. So I got the job offer December 15th.
Jeez.
And I was here by January 10th.
Oh my gosh.
So three weeks made the decision just to come up here and move up first time to North Dakota.
Yeah.
Because the interviews were all COVID.
You never went to the base out here for anything?
No.
Wow.
Had never been to North Dakota, had never been to UND. Literally the first time I was in North Dakota was in a Penske truck driving with my stuff to move up here.
You know, we got school starting here pretty soon, next week actually. Sure. What excites you the most when you walk through the buildings here?
So obviously it's the excitement that freshmen bring. But the part that really I enjoy is watching the maturity over their time as a student. Mm-hmm. And so then it's like you see flight instructors, or you see our UAS associates or ATC associates, or the graduate students in atmospheric science. You just see this. And you're like, I remember when you got here. I remember you as a freshman being dropped off by your parents and meeting your parents. And it's still, you're like one step removed from high school, right? To now you're a flight instructor. Now you're a teaching assistant. Now you're doing these things. You're in charge of things. You're running things. You are now ready to fly from like an eagle and fledgling's perspective, right? Yep. You are ready to fly on your own.
Yeah, that is really neat. Even in 480, the course I teach, in a 6-week period, it's amazing how much they grow up, you know, and just become more mature and confident. So, you know, for incoming students, what are some opportunities, maybe some that are, you know, known about, others that maybe aren't known about, that they should take advantage of?
So what there's some cautions I would put in this too. And so the student orgs are fantastic. And so the student org fairs come up the first week of class. There's the university big one that takes place, and then there's the SAC, this Student Aerospace Advisory Committee, puts on a nice student org fair over in Robin Hall. There are so many groups to join, and there's a tendency to over sign up and over commit at the beginning. And so I caution students to that. There are a lot of things to do. You don't need to do all of them, and you don't need to do all of them all at once. So pick a few, because I think that the biggest thing, marker of success here, is being focused on why you're here. You're here to get a degree. That is our job, is to provide and train and deliver that degree to you. It's their job to then learn, put in the time to study, put in the time to chair fly, whatever it is, whatever program they're in, and dedicate themselves to that, but not exclusively.
Right.
Because it is important to take a break. It's important to rejuvenate yourself, to refresh yourself, to get away from that just constant focusing on something and take a break, do something else. And this is where Greek life or whatever, all these, going to the hockey games on Fridays, or, whatever it is, or even if you're an outdoor person, going hiking. Right? Going out to any of the state parks or the fishing or, whatever it is. We got 10,000 lakes next door.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. Instead of having 250 new students come to your office and ask you about a piece of advice, why don't you tell all of them right now, what's a piece of advice to make them successful at UND Aerospace?
Learn to ask for help is probably the biggest one. So a lot of the students that come here have done well in school. So they're coming in very successful. They were might have been on a sports team. They might have worked at a business where they were a supervisor. So they're coming in with confidence. There's going to be a break in that confidence, that at some point they're not going to do well on a flight. They're not going to click with somebody. They're going to have a personal, conflict with someone. Things aren't going to go as well as planned. You're going to come into your class. You're going to think you're going to be getting straight A's, and you find out you get a C or a D on your first test, right? How do you recover from that? And so that's the biggest thing. And is it something that you alone are struggling through, or everyone is struggling through? And so in some cases, some people are able to they already have strong resiliency skills. They're able to get through that. The other is the friend network, study with each other. So this is where the living learning community is fantastic, is you can get together with other students, but be honest with each other too. Hey, I'm struggling with this. Can you show me how to do this? Because one of the best ways to learn is to teach. And so this also then prepares them to become flight instructors if they're already in study groups and teaching each other what the concepts are. And so it's that working together. And then if they don't have that social network, or if they don't have someone they can turn to, we do have resources that people can turn to. We have the Uplift program. We have the University Counseling Center. We have the embedded counselor here. And all of these, you can go and talk to these people, and it's not an impact on your flying career, at least initially. Obviously, if there are circumstances that go beyond that initial talk, then the counselors get involved and make those recommendations. But we have the resources to help students.
Yeah. And there's ways around, if you're having issues, it can be fixed and you can still fly, but fix it. That's the biggest thing.
And the other thing too is the faculty that are here. And it doesn't matter what department we're in. If someone's struggling with a topic, contact the instructor. Talk to the instructor, and if you're worried about registering for classes and getting into the next class, we have the advisors up in our front offices. Talk to your advisor. We have a lot of students who just register for classes on their own.
Yeah.
And they don't actually talk to someone. That works in some cases. In other cases, it doesn't. And this is where the advisors come in. They can make a recommendation. Then if in the event someone gets into flying and says, I get airsick, or, I really don't want to do this as a career, come and talk to us. Is it something that you're just struggling with temporarily, or is it that actual decision you're making that says you don't want to continue spending all this money to get this degree to not use it in the end, right? So we can also then advise you on what can you switch to. Is it you just don't want to fly, but you want to stay in aviation? Is this where aviation management comes in, or airport management, or dispatch, or UAS, or all of the different opportunities that we have? We can advise students on what else is out there. And then, there are faculty that come from all different backgrounds. Is there a faculty member that comes from a background that you'd like to know more about or find out how they got to where they are?
Okay. Yeah, that's really good advice. Dean Kraus, very interesting background. I loved hearing about you driving fast and stuff, but too bad it happened, what happened out of it. But very interesting to hear that, your background and the different routes that people can take, in aviation. So appreciate you coming and talking to us.
Sure. Glad to be here.